If you just joined us, this is TMI on Night TV Network, Benin Abuja Network Center. And of course, Dominic and I will be conducting this interview because it's all about multinationals exiting Nigeria. All right, because right now that is what is happening over 3 years. For the past 3 years rather, over 15 multinational companies have left Nigeria. And for a decade or so, you get to see the numbers of companies that used to be in Nigeria due to some factors which my analysts will delve into. They choose to pack up. They choose to leave the shores of Nigeria. They choose to go out there to seek greener pasture for them to do business. That is what is in vogue right now. Glasgow Slim Climb have been operating in Nigeria for over 50 years. And now they choose to pack up. Not fault of theirs. They gave us good reasons why they want to, exit the space of Nigeria. What about some of these oil companies? Yes, major oil companies, due to so many factors, they left the shores of Nigeria. Well, my analysts, or our analysts rather, will throw more light on this. I know that Dominic is also waiting to ask his own questions. With here also in the studio, we have an economist, Osaze Iyoha. Welcome to TMI. Appreciate your coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Nigerians, they've been so worried about the exit of multinationals, even some local companies in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they are seeking to know the reason why. What are the factors that is not so favorable for these companies to operate in Nigeria? They are saying, look, enough is enough. What can be done to really salvage the situation? Take it up from there.
The reasons are not far-fetched. It's even before Glasgow Smith left, Glasgow Smith, we had ShopRite. Yes. It's just that because they didn't change the franchise, so we didn't know that ShopRite left. ShopRite left, yes. And they just sold the franchise to one Ken with Nigeria Limited. So, and ShopRite were the first to leave, and they give very simple reasons. Exchange rate has been the problem. The currency has kept devaluing in the last 2-3 years. And most of these countries, they have their parent companies outside the country. They need to remit. And there was a time when it was what kept the discussion. The fact that CBN was not able to release dollars to all these airlines and so on. So most of them had their currency trapped within the country. So, a company comes, gets investment from the parent company, and they come to invest in your country, and they cannot remit. So, it's what you call holding account. Most times the parent company does the accounts for both the subsidiaries and the parent company. The ShopRite was saying that the Nigerian arm or subsidiary of their general business had been reporting loss over the last 3 years. So it was not in their favor to continue running business. Because if you imagine you bring in your dollars at maybe 1,000 naira, $1,000. As at the time you brought it, it can buy 800 naira. This way you are buying the things. You buy stock the supermarket, or for Glasgow Smith, they now pay salaries and so on. Then now they want to now take the profit back. You are now buying at 1,200 naira. Meanwhile, when you bought at 800. You are now buying, so it means you've lost 400 naira. So that's a loss on those businesses. And another very important thing that ShopRite also complained about was the fact that they were spending so much on power. There's no government power. So they are running generators. You go to most banks, and most times, I was in a bank for about an hour. Throughout the 1 hour I spent there, they were running on generator, 1 hour. And that was the 1 hour I spent. I'm sure sometimes they run the whole day on generator. Yeah. And you know how much a liter of diesel is now. You've not talked about maintenance costs. I was listening to the CMD of one hospital. He was just giving a general report to the staff. And he was saying that in a day, they spend about 1.4 million on just diesel.
1.4 million?
1.4 million on just diesel in the hospital because they run different generators. So we are not talking about maintenance costs. So these are the issues that would make... You can't... Before all this, we also knew what happened to Dunlop. We also knew what happened to Michelin. Volkswagen, Peugeot, they all left the country. They were all scattered all around. So where did they go to? They didn't go far. Most Dunlop and Michelin in Ghana, just our neighbors here. Yes. So they take our rubber because we had rubber. That was the comparative advantage. The fact that they didn't need to import this rubber, but now they take the rubber, take it to Ghana, manufacture, and come here. So for them, it makes more sense to do all those logistics, transport it to Ghana and manufacture there and now sell to, because we are still the largest market. They will still have to make profit from selling from us. So they are a varied factor, but it doesn't go beyond power. It doesn't go beyond diesel, which is power. It doesn't go beyond exchange rate. So those are the very, very major issues that have been their problem all the while.
All right, now, Dominic, I believe you're watching. I believe you have a question or two for our analysts here in the studio about the exit of multinational companies. Dominic, over to you.
All right, I want to say good morning. If I get the name right, Osase also. Now, you've given some of the reasons why these multinational companies have decided to leave Nigeria or leave the shores of Nigeria to nearby countries to do business. But let's look at it from the genesis. How did we get to this level? Because if you look at those companies while they were here, for instance, the automobile company that was operating in Kaduna, the Peugeot, we saw how Nigerians were in love with such vehicles. And then at the time, they just fizzled away because we were not having much of that assembling happening in Nigeria. But tell us, at what point did we get to this level that we keep crying foul each time multinationals are in Nigeria?
Very simple. Bad government policies was the problem. It all started gradually from devaluation during the IBB regime to general bad government policies. There was a time when Peugeot was the official car in Nigeria. Government officials, in fact, there's really no alternative to Peugeot. So it's just about the local market. By the time you stifle, these people make cars, they have to sell. Demand drives supply in the first place. So we now got to a point where I think from the Abacha regime, you now started having government officials buying Benz, government officials buying foreign cars, let's not brand. So what happens to these local manufacturers? They found themselves out of business. Even I know we criticized recently when the House of Assembly bought 160 million naira vehicles. So we are crying that we don't have foreign exchange. Then you have local manufacturer. We have about 3 or 4 that I can mention without mentioning their names. So what happens? You now take your scarce foreign exchange that you say you don't have, you go and import cars. So that's all what happens today. And general government policies, power started failing from 1980s too. What happens to all the policies regulating these people? So taxes increased, you were not buying their products, foreign exchange began to fall. So it just started falling. It's just the same question we want to ask. What happened to Nigeria Airways? Nigeria Airways was the leading airline in probably Africa in the 70s. We had our maintenance, repair and operating center in Murtala Mohammed Airport where we were maintaining planes. There was a time that when I read, we had about 35 fleets of planes in our we were buying on cash, not lease. Nigeria Airways was buying cash, our flights, 35 at some point. But what happened? Corruption. You have government officials give tickets to their girlfriends, give tickets to their family and friends. They fly for free. There was no more maintenance. And as of today, and it's on good authority, we don't have an MRO center facility where you repair or maintain flights. They want to do that because you do C checks every 18 months on your plane. So they want to do it, they take their planes outside. And I was listening to the owner of EP saying that to do just an ordinary C check, you need as much as $500,000 every 18 months. Why? Because we don't do it here. So it's just been multiplicity of, it's been government policies largely. Because we are so dependent on government. In fact, government provides the regulatory framework. So everything hovers around. So largely it was because government policies. We started going away from local manufacturing. And the whole appetite for foreign, it affected us. Our clothes, what happened to all those other companies, Leventis, all those Leonards, Bata and so on. They also left because our appetite for foreign, and when you are not producing and you have taste for consumption, you're almost like a thief because There's no how you can produce, there's no how you can consume, or there's no how you don't produce and you want to consume that your population will not be poor. It's not possible, because then we are now further devaluing the currency, and it makes it all the more worse. Our foreign reserves is down, and you see the exchange rate. I was just checking before I came here. The exchange rate as at today now for the dollars is about 1,280. So you ask yourself, does it? And it doesn't even look like it's going to reduce. And you know, that's why these companies, they see those figures and they're asking themselves, if by December, because December is a period when you expect that forex drops, because you expect supply of forex.
Dollars, yes.
Exactly. All those remittances, those who are coming into the country, but you still see it flying. So you now ask yourself, what will happen by January, February? So these companies are looking, if we don't move now, what happens? How can we convert? Because most of them, they bring their foreign hard currency into the country. It's in their vaults. So now they ask themselves, how do we, if we don't exit now, we might buy dollars at 1,500, 1,800. Why? Because the speculators have also said, I'm sure you saw the last CBN report, this investigative report that our son, I've forgotten his name now, that Bini guy did. And they found out that there are forex reserves, about 34.1 million, about 15 million out of that, about 40% was borrowed.
40% borrowed.
Of
All right.
forex is borrowed.
Okay, now Dominic, do you have some other questions for our guests in the studio?
These government policies, I know so many analysts, some persons have argued that if you look at the way it is going, it will favor the local currency, that's the Naira. But just like you mentioned, we are not a producing country. So how do we begin to backstep to say that, okay, fine, it might be a blessing in disguise if these companies are leaving, our own company should be able to revive and then start producing these things that we are importing. How do we begin to make it work so that we now look inward and allow these companies to go after all? They came from a country. Look at the telecom revolution. Remember when former president brought in the GSM, and then we now have our own GSM, that's the Globe network, and it's still there. And we have other Nigerians coming up with other services also. Don't you think that if these foreign companies will allow us grow our own economy, we may not be in this position where we are today?
Yeah. The response to that is two-sided. First of all, the local people, how do they also compete? Because the local environment, the domestic environment, as harsh. If the foreigners with their foreign investment is harsh for them, it's even harsher for the local, the domestic citizens, the citizens of the country. Because first of all, let's ask, what's the interest rate right now? CBN has been increasing MPR since March last year. They've done about 10 different MPCs. They've increased interest rate. Interest rate now, the average interest rate at the bank is about 35%. You have countries in China with interest rate as low as 5%, 6%. There are some countries in Europe with 8% interest rate. So ask yourself, you the local operator who wants to replace these foreigners, how do you get capital? If you have to borrow at 35%, if you have to run power, if you have to get ease of doing business has been another complaint, to push your documents, CAC, your PENCOM, those documents that you need to register your businesses. Ask the average businessman how many days he uses. You go to countries like Germany, go to countries like, you have, there's a chart, you have an average, you have some countries as low as 1 week, as low as 2 weeks, ease of doing to get all their registration documents. But come to Nigeria, you can be doing it for 3-6 months and you've not started. Because one official puts your paper into his drawer and says, if you don't come and see him. And by the time you spend all those money, you're in soup. Because first of all, you've not now provided for power. So the interest rate has been a very major problem. There's no businessman who does business without borrowing. The biggest refinery that we are talking about today, he borrowed about 60 to 70% of it were borrowed from Stanbic and some other banks. The project almost flopped recently until some banks, a conglomerate, Access Bank, about 5 Nigerian banks, had to borrow him money and he has started again. So there's no businessman that does not. So interest rates of Nigeria, and you know, the environment is very, very, sometimes you wonder, what are we really pushing? MPC has not held for September, October, November. That's the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the CBN. That's where you give direction to the economy. That's when the CBN says this is now MPC rate, this is now official exchange rate. So people look and they get this confidence that, oh, there's something happening. For about 3 months, it has been postponed. It was to hold last month. It was postponed to last 3 weeks. And now, throughout this, if I can say for the next 4 months, we might not have MPC meeting. So what it does is that it doesn't give direction to the people. And also, I was saying that the answer is two-pronged. So now, if you talk about the foreign, then on our own, how do we think we can now also compete with with those people who left, who, if we have our naira, we are not able to come? So I think it's a very, very, very strong decision. Until we leave, you look at countries like China, they are domestic. If you say you are devaluing your currency, first of all, because what we have done is that we have devalued. We have around 1,200 naira to $1. You do devaluation in economics when you want to attract imports. You want to attract people to buy your, because the thinking is that when an American is coming with $1,000, he can buy more naira, and so he can buy more goods. So it makes your imports, your exports rather, attractive.
Attractive.
Yeah, so that's the essence of the, but you don't devalue when you don't even have what to sell. We've not been able to feed ourselves. We can't even feed ourselves with Gary. We're importing Gary as low as that. So another thing is that production, what are we producing? You know, there's what you call primary production, secondary production, then the tertiary, which is services. We are still in the 21st century. You see a presidential candidate telling you that they will develop agricultural sector. They will develop, these are all primary products with very low value added product. How much is, just ask yourself, a pod of cocoa, I usually say it is about, let's say 300, 400 naira. But now you now go to the supermarket and you get a chocolate, just one bar of chocolate, to be running towards 2,000, 3,000 naira. And you will not use as much as one cocoa pod to produce, you will use it to produce as many bars of chocolate. So that's why we talk about value addition. So when we continue doing primary production, we go nowhere. Because there is no country, look at countries doing primary production. I think Saudi Arabia is the largest oil producing country. And they are a primary product because oil, crude oil is primary. Even among the G8, G10, G12, you don't find Saudi Arabia there. That's the maximum they can get. They are just a good economy. But look at the countries in G8, G12, Germany, Japan, China. These are all product-producing countries. So until you start producing secondary products, don't sell wood, sell manufactured wood tiles. Don't sell cocoa, sell cocoa pod and chocolates. Don't sell gold, raw gold. We've been hearing that they've been extracting, they've been stealing our gold in Zamfara. They sell it outside. $2 per ounce. Then you now do jewelry. You know the price of a box of jewelry runs into millions. So until we now start thinking ahead towards secondary production, and when I look at the crop of leaders that we have now, it's very difficult to think that we have anything.
Right now, so you talked about production. That's on one hand. On the other hand, you also said, where can we get the capital, knowing fully well that the percentage right now, interest rate is 35%. Yeah. So where do we go from here? You're giving us a solution. At the same time, tell us what will work against that solution. How do we come out of this?
I think it just boils down to fiscal discipline. We have to, you know, what CBN has done in the last 1 year, they've done everything. They've emptied their book of knowledge. They've emptied their book of tools of how to bring the economy, because the issues are not monetary. You know, they've tried to increase MPRO because of the economic theory that when there is an inflation, what you do is that you increase interest rates so that it brings down. You know, they've tried everything in their books and it hasn't worked, simply because our issues are not monetary. Nigeria is not a monetary economy, and I've explained that so many times, because 40%, first of all, what's our formal to informal ratio? The informal sector of Nigeria is larger than the formal sector. You have, first of all, go to a market as large as New Benin, for example. I just want you to go to all those businessmen, ask them, can I see your CAC registration? Can I see your tax report? Can I see your audited accounts for the last 3 years? None of them will. I can tell you that about, you might not get from about 5 or 10% of them. So it means that it's a largely informal sector. And when CBN wants to put all these policies that increase interest rate, the thinking is that when they increase interest rates, you are encouraged to send money to the bank, because the amount that you get on your savings would increase, and it will also increase costs. But
strictly, it doesn't increase.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They keep deducting.
Yes, of course.
For SMS, for this, for that. Yeah. Like the money is just there, dormant.
Of course, and that's why I said, because the monetary sector, the formal sector is very small. So whatever they do it doesn't transmit into the formal sector. Because when you say increase interest rate, these people, most of these people don't even go to the banks to borrow. They don't even have anything to do with the bank, because the banks will ask for collaterals. So they go to the informal sector, the OIDARA, the cooperatives, and borrow money from them. So whatever we do, it has to be fiscal. So that I'm just trying to make the point that Nigeria is a largely fiscal economy. That's government, not CBN now. So it has to come to fiscal discipline. I think the government has to be more disciplined. We are borrowing for frivolities, and it's painful. This government just came, it did 2.8 trillion immediately supplementary budget. From about 1.5 billion was used to purchase vehicles for the office of the First Lady. Now, about 3 weeks ago, another 7.8 trillion has been borrowed again. We are not talking of the one in the 2024 budget that is about 10 trillion naira. Our debt is now about 100 trillion naira and above. So I think solutions, fiscal discipline, simple. The government, the question is that most times when we talk, we ask ourselves, does the government itself also want a change? Because it's one thing for you as the citizen to want a change, another thing for the government to want. But when you have this fiscal rascality, you are going for a conference, you take as many as how many thousands of people on a flight, you are going for, so it's just complete waste. And I think until the government fixes its discipline, tries to use money for the right reasons, don't buy 160 million vehicles, dollars.
So from what you're saying right now, our underlying problem is wastage.
Wastage, corruption. It's very less of economy. There's really not little that we economists can profile right now, because everything has been gone off the books. I really don't say anything. I've been a program manager and I've talked about economy, and I think our textbook needs to be adjusted. We talk about demand pull inflation, supply side inflation. I think there's a corruption pull inflation, and until we solve that, I think we'll just be going around in circles.
Dominic, over to you.
I wanted to take your guest, or rather our guest, on the issue of borrowing. You've given figures, you said about 100 trillion naira. That's where our loans is standing. And I remember the former administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has defended severally through his cabinets of ministers why Nigeria is borrowing so much. They said is to ensure that we fix our infrastructure. In that way, we can get things working, get businesses working. I don't think you toe on that same line with the administration, because I know the present administration is of the same party with the former administration that just left a few months ago. And if they keep telling us that, look, we have to borrow this money to ensure that we'll fix our infrastructure, is a way of trying to get things to work so that businesses can improve in the country?
Yeah, there's really nothing wrong with borrowing. We've said that. I know I've heard many economists say that, and I really agree with that. There's really nothing wrong with borrowing. Even America, the American economy, the American government, they are the largest debtors in the world. Yeah, Japan, same thing too. But the point is, by the time you borrow, and you look at, you talked about infrastructure, which is true, but there was also a revelation that even the Niger Bridge, the second Niger Bridge which we built, the original plan was that it was supposed to be PPA project, a private-public partnership, But somewhere along the line, I think we can Google it. It's in the records, very strict. That was the original arrangement, but somewhere along the line it was changed. And government wanted to foot the bill alone. And you ask yourself, why should that be? That's what happens in developed countries. You do private public partnership, then probably the private people run it for about 20 years, collect tolls on it, then they hand over to government. But because you want to have corrupt government officials, they want to benefit from contract. So you now have government struggling to want to fund projects. And you ask yourself, why? These are projects that are supposed to be PPA. So government, so that's why I said it all boils down to corruption. So by the time you borrow loans, we had revelations then during there was one house presentation when they invited people to come and speak during the Buhari administration, where we had revelations that they were borrowing money, and some government officials had a percentage on each loan that was collected from China. And you know, so when you borrow monies and you don't use it for the right purpose, then you go back to the same debt situation that you were. So I think borrowing, I just said that it's over 100 trillion right now, and we are still adding more. And you know, the painful part is that about 60% of our debt, or 50, is made up of foreign loans. So it means that we are going to be servicing these loans in our with forex, and we are complaining that we don't have forex. I said the last time that about 40% of our loans is borrowed. 40% of our forex reserves is borrowed.
It's borrowed, yeah.
And speculators look. So when you see those figures of 34 million dollars as our reserve, about 40% is borrowed. So speculators look at it and say, oh, these guys, Nigeria, they will not be able to defend their currency whenever there's any problem. So they continue. I'm sure you were the last time when the government said they were going to borrow $3 billion from Afrexim Bank. And what happened to dollars, the Naira exchange rate? It crashed. It came to as low as 1,900 even about 2 weeks ago. So it's just speculation that is happening to our currency. But these people have looked now, and they've seen that, 40% of the forex is borrowed. So it means that Nigeria lacks the capacity to defend her Naira. So you have these speculators, they've nearly strangled our neck, and so I fear what will happen to the exchange rate by March. So very clearly, we have borrowed, and as I said, there's nothing wrong in borrowing. But first of all, the fact that it is foreign loans, most of them were foreign loans, means we have to service with a forex. Then the fact that we didn't use these loans for the right purpose. They told us that when they remove subsidy, we will have enough money to build the roads, to do infrastructures, to do hospitals. And I laughed when I was in WhatsApp group and I told people, and what has happened since then? They've removed subsidy, we've saved billions of dollars. What's happening? We are still borrowing to carry out projects. We've simply impoverished the people. What it simply did is took money from the people and gave it to government. And left the people impoverished. So government now has so much money to play with, to steal, to carry out frivolities with.
Now, from your own analysis, do you see more companies leaving the shores of Nigeria?
I see so. As long as our foreign exchange, Naira to the dollar, continues to increase, which it definitely will happen because we are not producing. The only way to reduce forex is when you get supply of forex. And no country, America is not going to print dollars and give you, and gift to you, It's when you produce, they buy from you, then you get dollars. That's when your currency comes down. Every other means that we use, we are going to borrow 10 billion. The president has gone to Saudi Arabia. All they are just trying to do is information effect, to give the speculators the impression that, dollars is coming in. So they can, all those will just be short-termism, short-term plans. Until you produce and now start earning forex, your exchange rate will continue to fly. So, and if it continues to fly, it means that those businesses here will not come and do business. So that's one. Then if your interest rate continues to increase, they are going to get out. If your power is not fixed, because they are spending 40-50% of their operating costs on power. If it's not fixed, they would also run. So when you look at these three indicators, forex, the exchange rates, power, interest rates, do you get an impression that these three will improve? The answer is no. There's really nothing fixed on power. Our power is still our transmission is 5 kV, so it means that whatever the Gencos produce, even if they produce 20 megawatt, 50,000 megawatt, as far as our transmission is still pegged at 5,000. It has been 5,000 last year. Yeah. So it means if you put above 5,000 on a transmission, what happens? It crashes. And that's why I had about 8 crashes last year alone. This year about 8 or 9 too. So it means that our power cannot also, there's no likelihood that it will improve because there's no improvement in the transmission. So power, exchange rate, interest rate, does it seem like it would abate? No. And if it seems so, then it means many companies are still going to leave.
Dominic, I believe we have a couple of questions for our guests in the studio.
I just have one, just to make him understand that in as much as we keep calling on government to do, individuals to have their parts to play. Definitely, government has to make the environment easy for them to do that. But let me take you on the tax reform of this. If you look at what has been happening of recent, and sometime ago in August or September or so, they rolled out some tax waivers for businesses in Nigeria in a way to see how they can improve the ease of doing business and encourage our local production in the country. Now, if you're looking at this policy vis-a-vis the other issues you raised there, the tax reform, do you think the administration of Bola Tinubu administration will be doing anything positively in this regard? Because we're already seeing that those companies that are folding up, some of them are of the opinion that this tax waiver would have come earlier before now.
Yes. I remember the last time when I was talking, I said that the response to your answer is two-pronged, but the second part escaped me, and thank you for reminding me. I was just saying that, first of all, the cost of borrowing is high. So when you ask the question that can local producers replace the foreign, so first of all, we said cost of borrowing is high, but on this flip side, which you just reminded me, most of our them, it's either they lock it in vaults, they put it in underground tanks. So these are the people who would probably be able to replace this foreign investor because they have money. They've stacked billions of naira in their dollars in their vaults. So what do they do with this money? You don't leave money idle in business, in economics generally. Idle money is no money. So you now ask, even those who now decide to invest, what do? They build hotels. They build filling stations. Those kind of business, they don't add to GDP. There's no how. These are services. You invest in hardcore production. There are things you can produce. You can produce as simple as air conditioners. We have all the facilities. You can produce sockets. I don't think we do as small as screws for an airline. The head of the chairman of Epis was saying, even as small as a screw for the airline, they import it. There are so many things that we can do with hardcore production. Don't just put in lazy businesses like filling stations, and those ones, they don't add value. How many people do you employ in a filling station? Maximum 5, 6, 8 people. But you have a manufacturing hub where you do hardcore manufacturing. You are probably making tiles. You are probably converting wood to wooden tiles. You would employ as many as 300, 200 people, and that would increase reduce the unemployment rate. So that is then on concerning taxes. I don't think there is so much that has to be done in. I think when you look at these foreign investors who are leaving, when you check their complaints, I think taxes just falls among probably the from 10 to 20. First 10, you don't find taxes there. The problem really they complain about is ease of doing business, regulatory framework, where there's flip-flop of government policies. The one government comes with one policy today, the other government comes with another policy tomorrow. You have issues of power. I think that's their major complaint. Power, ease of doing business. Ease of doing business will also include the ports. You go to the ports, that's another kettle of fish entirely. You now have most businessmen going through Ghana to go and to bring in their products into the country. Why? Because they go to NPA, their goods spend 1 month, 2 months at the port because those people are looking for bribes. You have scanners. The NPA can't say as and that they have functioning scanners. So you now do manual search. Where I have businessmen as friends, they have to bring out a whole container, one after the other, to bring, because you now have under recovery. You now have a container of maybe 3 million. You have an agreement with the official of customs, and that's okay. We'll put down for 1 million. So this one I might share, so that it reduces the amount that goes to government. So by the time you now have start using scanners that can scan a container, no matter about 300 feet container, in just 48 minutes, in just 45 minutes. And you can clear as many products as a day, many containers a day. But this one, you now have containers at the ports 1 month, and it's affecting the businessman. And by the time after 1 month, he now comes, you now calculate a demurrage for him. Demurrage per night, you say demurrage per night of 100,000. He now sees his demurrage for 1 month. It's almost more than the good that he's importing. So he just leaves it for you.
All right, thank you so much, Jose. Our time is fast spent. Our time is up on this particular edition, Mother's edition of this morning on ITV. I really appreciate a wonderful analysis. Those of your analyses are so scary, but it's the truth. We have to tell ourselves the truth. It's scary, but that is where we are today. For what is said, the CBN, they've tried all they could. They've gone through the books, talking about ID economy. They went through the books, did this and did that. It's like nothing seems to be working. Now, what do we do? That's the next question for the government of the day to answer. Frivolous spending, wastages. We should do something to avoid this. Come on, cut the cost of governance. Dive into hardcore manufacturing. Underline hardcore manufacturing, at least to employ people and to revive our naira. You know that out there putting dollars in votes, you are killing the country. You have millions of dollars just in your vote. You're not helping us. You're strangulating the economy. And in the long run, it's going to affect you directly or indirectly. After all, we are all in the same country. You all go to the same market, still in the same Nigeria. So what are you willing to give? What are you willing to do? After all, if you pass on today, you won't go with the dollars to heaven. So remain there. Anyway, Dominic, your last line to this edition of This Morning on ITV. I believe you've learned a lot. Scary, 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 but that is where we are.
Of course, each time you talk to economics, you tend to be scared when they start giving you analysis of things. Probably you think it's just going to the market and buying a commodity and come back home. You were wondering, why is the price of a bag of rice selling as high as 50,000 naira? Somebody will tell you it's transportation, but if you listen to what the economics said, there are different factors relating to this. But I just want to advise our viewers out there, please, for this season, cut your coats according to your size. If you must celebrate the Christmas with the biting economy. Well, from Abuja end, we'll say thank you for investing your time on the program this morning on ITV. I am Dominic Eyemese. Bye for now.
All right, thanks a lot, Dominic. Well, you've heard the economists. We wouldn't lose hope. We just cannot lose hope. We have to keep hope alive. But if you are one of those power movers in Nigeria, I mean financial power movers, stop putting our dollars in votes, please. Stop putting our naira in septic tanks or overhead tanks. Stop doing that. Bring it out. Let's invest to save this economy. See you again tomorrow, God willing. Bye for now.